Hello, this is Dr. Kim Jeong-gil. Today, I will lecture on third-order bends among the causes of malocclusion. What is the third-order bends? Third-order bends are also known as torquing bends on archwire. It means buccolingual or labiolingual inclination of teeth. Andrews said that the maxillary incisors have labial torque on the crown, and the rest of the teeth have crown-lingual torque. Third-order bends are evaluated anterior teeth, upper canine, posterior teeth torque and torque differences between left and right sides through model and Ceph analysis. The first thing that needs to be evaluated is anterior teeth inclination. In Class 2 Division 1, the maxillary incisors are inclined to the labial side, and in Class 2 Division 2, the maxillary incisors are inclined to the lingual side. Andrews said that the maxillary incisors have a crown labial torque of +7 degrees, and the mandibular incisors have a crown lingual torque of -1 degree. Ceph. In the picture, the normal angle of U1 to FH is 114 degrees, and the normal angle of L1 to MP is 90 degrees. This patient has an angle of U1 to FH of 84 degrees. Compared to normal, it shows 30 degrees of crown lingual tipping and extrusion. At that time, the mandible cannot move forward, so it becomes a Class 2 Division 2 malocclusion. The next thing to evaluate is upper canine inclination. Hans paper evaluated the changes in the case where the sagittal condylar inclination, SCI, and the lingual surface of the maxillary canine were parallel, and when the lingual surface of the maxillary canine was given a crown lingual inclination of 5, 10 and 15 through CADIAX. That axis was evaluated by dividing it into forward and backward movement, the I axis left and right movement, and the axis downward movement. It is to observe the movement of the teeth when moving forward or forward from the starting point, and then returning to the original position. If the crown lingual inclination of the maxillary canine is 10 degrees, the starting point is the same as compared to the equal SCI, but the pattern of change was observed that the mandibular condyle moves posteriorly and upward. Therefore, steep canine guidance means severe crown lingual inclination, which is not desirable because the condyle can move posteriorly and upward. Picture B1 shows a severe crown lingual inclination of the upper right canine, and picture B2 shows a severe crown lingual inclination of the canine on both sides of the maxilla. The ICW of photo B1 is 34.6 mm, and the ICW of photo B2 is 32 mm. Both cases are Class 2 malocclusions in which the mandible cannot move forward. In the picture C, the canine on the right side of the maxilla is inclined to the lingual side of the crown. The midline of the mandible is deviated to the left, the right side is Class 1, and the left side is half Class 2. So, summarizing, steep canine guidance or excess crown lingual inclination on upper canine can lead to Class 2 malocclusion if it is bilateral, and midline deviation if it is unilateral. The next thing to evaluate is posterior teeth inclination. Posterior teeth gradually have crown lingual torques. In Class 2 malocclusion, the maxillary bone is often large, and crown lingual inclination of the premolar and posterior teeth may be severe to compensate for this. On the other hand, in Class 3 malocclusion, the maxillary bone is often small, and the crown buccal inclination of the premolar and posterior teeth may be severe. Next is the differences in torque between the left and right. After the patient is center correct, the observation shows that the arch form is asymmetric and has a torque difference on the left and right sides. In the figure, the midline is deviated to the left, so the left is the shift side and the right is the non-shift side. At this time, the torque of the maxillary posterior teeth on the shift side is crown buccal inclination, and the torque on the maxillary posterior teeth on the non-shift side is crown lingual inclination. When evaluating midline deviation, the occlusal plane as the second-order bends and torque as the third-order bends should be observed simultaneously. In other words, the occlusal plane should be observed whether it is a steep occlusal plane or a flat occlusal plane, and whether the torque is crown buccal inclination or crown lingual inclination. The occlusal plane can also be evaluated by dividing the anterior and posterior parts, and the torque can be evaluated mainly by dividing the premolar and molar teeth. In Hahn's paper, the occlusal plane on the shift side showed a large difference in the posterior values, which means a steep occlusal plane, and the torque values were small in the premolar and molars, which means that crown lingual inclination is severe. In patients with midline deviation, there is a difference in torque on both sides. If the deviation is to the right posterior teeth are crown buccal inclination, and the treatment direction is changed to crown lingual inclination. In the case of the picture, the midline of the maxilla is deviated to the left, and the midline of the mandible is deviated to the right. It is judged that the midline is deviated to the left due to severe crowding on the left side of the maxilla. The mandible lacks the eruption space of the tooth, 47, and crowding and left-right asymmetry of the mandibular right posterior teeth are observed. Therefore, it is important to remember that midline deviation cases have first-order bends, second-order bends, and third-order bends all related. In this patient, the mandible midline is deviated to the right, and the maxillary arch is also asymmetric. Therefore, in MEAW analysis, since vertical relationship, sagittal relationship, and transverse relationship are all correlated as etiologic factors of midline deviation malocclusion. First-order bends, second-order bends, and third-order bends must be observed. Which part of this patient has crown buccal inclination? It is the right of the maxilla. Therefore, the midline of the mandible is deviated to the right. The occlusion is class 1 on the left and full class 2 on the right. The etiologic factors of malocclusion include skeletal origin, dental origin, and environmental origin. Observe tooth number, tooth size, tooth shape. First-order bends, second-order bends, third-order bends as dental origin, and various viewpoints such as class 1, class 2, class 3, high angle, low angle, asymmetry as skeletal origin. It is important to find the cause of the malocclusion. Thank you for watching.